knock out some barbecue ribs. Here we have some racks of pork ribs on special at the supermarket, so what better time to do them. Simple ingredients we need to start it off. Apple cider vinegar for our marinade. Lemons off the lemon tree. I use the scabbiest looking lemons because no one cares once they're juice. And the barbecue rub. I'll put up the mixture on the slide of what's in the barbecue rub. The main ingredients: smoked paprika, dried onion, dried garlic powder, crushed black pepper, a little bit of... Anyway, you'll see it all on the list. But anyway, that's the rub that we're going to use. So first things first, break out our ribs. With these ribs, even though the expiry date might give you a few extra days, I always reckon it's best to use them as quickly as possible, because anything with a bone in is liable to go off a lot quicker than cuts of meat that don't have the bone in. So if we get a nice big dish so we can fit it all in and have a little bit of room for our marinade. Okay, so give it a good hit of our rub, the rub on all over. Don't be shy with the rub, you can go pretty hectic with it. Okay, that's one side down. This excess that's gone into the tray, put that on the underside. Alright, don't need to do this underside of the bone so much because there's no meat there. Just get it on the actual meat. I'll break out our other rack. Watch the paprika in this, it stains everything. The clothes, the bench. Anyway, that's cooking. Alright, we'll slap our other rack on top. The rub on there. These in the bin. Beautiful. Already you can see that lovely colour that you get from the rub. Okay, flip that over. You're going to put a little bit more rub on after we finish marinating. We'll try to get most of it on the actual meat. Okay, there we go. So the trick is, we'll overlap the ribs so that they're all sitting in the tray. What we're going to do, we'll marinate this for about 36 hours and we'll keep turning it over so everything gets a good hit of the marinade. Now the apple cider vinegar and the lemon juice will help to partially cook the meat before it gets any heat. It also really helps with the bone to stop any bacteria growth or anything like that, so that the ribs will stay nice and fresh. All right, quick rinse under the tap. Okay, now we just juice our lemons. For the marinade. You can use 2 large lemons, 3 small lemons, 4 lemons, it doesn't really matter. It's not too precious. But this marinade is also going to form part of our sauce for the ribs. So once we finish cooking, we'll save all this beautiful liquid, and with the fat and the juices from the meat, it'll form an absolutely delicious sauce to go with our ribs. Very good with the leftover ribs, which we'll be turning into rolls the day after. Let's get most of that juice out. No pips. All the seeds. Okay. These lemons that I use are Eureka lemons. They're very versatile, beautiful flavoured lemons. They have nice thick rind as well, so if you want to make things like preserved lemons, they're great for that too. These little guys have been affected by the storms and everything and knocked off the trees a little bit earlier than they normally would, but that's all alright. They still taste great. This is good use in marinades for lemons that don't look particularly attractive, and save you beautiful looking ones for lemon wedges that you put on your plate with the fish or other dishes. Okay, so there we have, we nearly got our lemons out. Oh, there's a tough old one. Stop the seeds from going in. Okay, next thing is, notice I'm not pouring the marinade over the actual rub on the meat. So we'll let that get right in, and then we'll just pour some vinegar in, about half a cup of vinegar. You don't have to be exact with the measurement, but roughly half a cup. Just a slight splash more. Okay. So all we do now, just give that a little bit of a mix around in there. Try to get everything right down into the dish. Put a bit of Glad wrap over the meat and back in the fridge. Another 6 hours, we'll flip that all over, right over like that, 180 degrees, so that the bones are getting marinated on both sides and the meat is obviously getting marinated as well. And that's about it for the first stage. Time to set the Weber up to cook our barbecue ribs. I'm using hardwood charcoal, which I pick up from Bexley in Sydney, 30 bucks a bag. I think a 20 or 25 kilo bag. Makes a massive difference to the taste of your ribs. To cook them on the Weber with proper hardwood charcoal. Use the chimney to get the charcoal lit up. My Webers. Alright, to go with our ribs, we're going to have some beautiful Carolina coleslaw. My beautiful wife is just cutting up some cabbage to go in there. And I'm going to grate some carrot and mix it up with some dressing. With our barbecue ribs tonight, we're having corn on the cob, done on the Weber. So get yourself a nice, beautiful cob of corn. Always when you buy them, just pull it back a bit and check the top. Make sure that it's nice young kernels and that there's no bugs or anything like that in it. Anyway, this one I've stripped the husks back and taken the silk out, but it's very important, leave them attached to the cob. We just grab some butter. Don't be shy with the butter, a lot of it's going to cook out on the Weber. You want it to give it a beautiful flavour to the corn. We just rub the butter over the corn like so. Over this side as well. Get it in all through those kernels. Like so. Like I said, don't be shy with the butter. Gives a good flavour. And then we'll give it a good hit with some salt. Again, don't worry about the amount of salt as well, because a lot of that will come off with the butter, so you won't end up with corn that's too salty. Okay, and pull those husks back over your corn, because that's going to protect it when it's barbecuing and help it cook. Then with one of your bits of corn husk, simply tie it up, just with a half hitch, if you can. I'll get there eventually. Alright, just pull that down just like so, just to roughly hold those husks in place. Doesn't have to be too pretty. Alright, that's number one corn done. I'll do the other one a little bit later, and I'll show you the ribs, how we're going to finish them off to get them ready. So these have been marinating since yesterday. I've been turning the ribs over about every 6 to 8 hours to make sure that the marinade's going evenly through them. Marinade's just simple apple cider vinegar and lemon juice. Now we'll put it into our tray. We'll pour the marinade into the tray that we're going to use to cook our ribs, because that's going to become part of the sauce that's going to go on our ribs. Very tasty. Also it helps with the process of the cooking process to make sure that the ribs have a little bit of steaming as well as cooking to keep them nice and moist. Okay, so a bit more rub. I'm just going to put some rub on the outside. We've already put plenty on, but a little bit more before you start cooking is great. Okay. Now we've got our ribs ready for a little hit in the smoker. They're going to go in the hot smoker for about 10 minutes. Not to cook them, just to put that smoky flavour into the ribs. So when they go on the Weber and cook for the long 2.5 hours, slow cook, they'll already have that smoke. If I tried to cook them too long in the smoker, they would make them very bitter because the smoke really gives you a full effect between 10 and 20 minutes, depending on what you're cooking. But we'll give it about 10 minutes. This is my homemade smoker. I've got a little video of how to make one of these hot smokers for less than $5. All right, so this is one of these butane cookers that you can buy at Bunnings or a camping store or somewhere like that. That cost about $20–25. Push the cylinder in, maximum gas. Don't have your smoker too far over the gas cylinder or it'll cause it to shut off if it overheats. We whack our tray in. This keeps the meat off the sawdust so we can smoke it. And here's our beautiful ribs ready to go in for a little hit in the smoker. Just lay them down like that. See the smoke starting to come off already. Doesn't matter if they're a little bit overlapped. All we're trying to do is get a bit of extra smoky flavour into these. And then yeah, you can see the smoke starting to come up already. We'll whack our lid on. I didn't bother to cut this lid back. Alrighty, so we'll give that 10 minutes in the smoker. You'll see plenty of smoke start to come out of it. Alright, so we had the smoker on for 10 minutes. Turned it on and left it off. Turned it off, I should say. Left it for another 5 minutes to let the smoke in the smoker condense down and settle on the ribs a bit more. The smoke will be it'll always be a lot smokier if you let it condense onto whatever you're cooking. So we'll take it off. There we go. Look at that. All right. Still plenty of smoke. Okay. Now these, of course, nowhere near cooked. We're basically just taking the heat out of them. But now they've got that beautiful smoky flavour from the smoker. And we'll get them ready. Get them ready to go in the Weber. Okay, our coals are now fully lit, as you can see. So we're going to set the Weber up for indirect cooking. So we get our baskets, pour half the coals into one. And the other half of the coals in the other basket. Get them all out. A little tip for safety with your Weber that I do is I put water in the ashtray, so any coals that do fall through will get instantly extinguished. So we'll just level this up a little bit. Get our grill on. All right, so our ribs are going to sit in the tray in the middle. We're all ready to go. Okay, now we're going to get the ribs ready to go in the Weber. So they've had their little smoking. So what we're going to do is arrange them the thick side of the meat down because it's heavier in here. I'm going to use some skewers to support the whole thing. It's a little bit messy, anyhow. You should work through it. So these are just metal skewers. Just backwards and forwards through your ribs. Okay, so that'll hold that end in place. Now we've got our top. skewers are all joining together. Now we'll whack that like so. Do that thick bit. Now that'll basically hold them up. And what we'll do now is we'll just put it so that we can get a nice angle on the ribs. Put one more through this way. This will stop as they start cooking, as the ribs start cooking, by having the skewer through. It'll support them, stop them from collapsing down into the marinade. This marinade will be steaming these ribs from the inside, but it won't be making them too wet. We don't want a boiled rib, we just want the marinade to keep them moist. Okay, so we're up to that. Quick rinse the hands. Get yourself aluminium foil. We'll have the foil on for about the first hour when the Weber is really hot. This way, over this colour. Use that skewer to hold on the foil in place a bit. Have a bit over this side. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be completely sealed. Just roughly, it's more about protecting the meat than anything else from the heat, because we don't want to burn our ribs straight up. We want them to nice slow cooking. And here we are, ready to go on the Weber. Okay, so we've got our ribs centered between the two lots of coals, so we're doing the indirect cooking method. Got the vent holes are all open to full, top and bottom. Whack on our lid, and there we are. After about an hour, we'll take the foil off, we'll whack our corn on, then it'll probably be another hour and a half or so, and then it'll all be ready. I'm going to make some barbecue sauce to go on our ribs. This is the proportions that you need to put. 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. I use this extra spicy one. 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. 2 cups of tomato sauce. 2 teaspoons of hot English mustard, or 1.5 if you don't want it too spicy. I use about 1/2 teaspoon of my hot chili because it's very hot. If you're using a milder chili, you could use a bit more. A tablespoon of your barbecue rub, and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Mix these all together. Cook slowly over the heat until it all comes together and changes colour. This is what the barbecue sauce mix looks like before you start cooking it. You'll see it as I start to cook it, it'll transform in colour. Don't do too high a heat because it'll want to burn with the sugar and everything, and also it can get very messy. Alright, our barbecue sauce is getting very close now. We've had it on for about 12 or 13 minutes, and you can see it's changing that colour. It's getting that lovely silky look and got a lot darker. I cannot stop stirring this because if it bubbles, it just goes absolutely everywhere all over the kitchen. So anyway, I think that's just pretty much done. You can adjust the ratios however you like to your taste, and I'll put all the ingredient list up on a slide. Right, the ribs have been on for just over an hour. Let's have a look and see how they're going. Ooh, looking pretty good. You can see the meat's pulling away from the bone already, which is great. We're going to whack a little barbecue sauce on, and we're going to put our sweet corn on as well. Don't go too crazy with the barbecue sauce. We just want to put a bit of flavour in, not completely mask the taste of what we've already got. On goes our sweet corn in the indirect place on the end. Lid back on, we'll leave the foil off for now. There we go. Alright, we're ready to whip our ribs off. They look very nice. Stuck our corn on the side. Okay. Board underneath. Here we are. Here we've got beautiful sweet corn on the cob, our ribs, Carolina coleslaw, Janine's beautiful potato salad, all ready to go for a lovely meal. Let's get stuck in. Richard, almost anticipated that, so wisely played Sebastian with Tonya. Nicely done. What did you find? Well, one of the pleasures of the final series is that you get to reunite with some great players from the past and reunite with nice work, but well done.
Especially for the loved ones of more than 2.8 million people who died around the world. Reports from London.
Like much of the world, the UK is not used to grim statistics, but behind each of these 150,000 hearts was a life with a family left behind.
Well, getting to the end of our beautiful sticky ribs. You see that beautiful sauce at the bottom from the marinade. Just have a look at the texture of these bad boys. Beautiful. That is so succulent. Anyway, that's it for me.